So these two buildings in East Toronto have a fire between them, and it's been burning for 6 days now, forcing hundreds of residents to evacuate. But fire crews can't seem to put it out. So how is that possible?
This space is so tight, between 25 and 50 millimeters, that firefighters cannot directly access it. Complicating matters further, this gap contains compressed wood material which burns slowly, making progress extremely difficult.
So let's get into what's actually happening between these two buildings. I spoke to Sally Thompson, an engineer who's been working with condominium buildings since the 90s.
It's an interesting building because most people would look at it and see one building. 11 Thorncliffe is an L-shaped building and 21 Overley is a rectangular building, but they're right in direct contact with each other at one end. And it's that interface that I suspect is the problem.
Thompson says that in order to build one building right next to the other, they need to allow a small gap.
They need a gap between those two buildings so that structurally they can behave separately. And they're going to fill that with a fiberboard before they build the second wall, whether it's block or concrete, whatever it is, up against the original wall. The fire is in that narrow gap.
And complicating it further is the different sizes of these buildings.
The one building is much taller. The Overley building is taller, and the shorter building kind of comes into the side of it. And where they meet, that gap will be covered with a membrane flashing or sheet metal something, so the water doesn't go down in there. And basically, if I could remove that cap and kind of reach down, I could reach down for the full height of the building into this gap with something very narrow, but not with a human. And of course, the firefighters have no access to it.
This is the material that was...
So we don't know exactly the contents of this compressed material, but Thompson says filling the gap is common practice.
Normally, an expansion joint is if this is a slab sitting on a ledge, I want to separate that concrete when I pour it. So I'm going to put some material here and here to prevent the two concretes from connecting. And that way the joint can always move. In this case, the joint happens to be, 10 or 12 stories tall, right? So it's the same product that we would use. It's just a really unusual joint. Like this condition probably exists at a few dozen buildings, if that, in the city, because we don't commonly build buildings right intimate to each other. A lot of the older downtown buildings, the sort of 2-story, 3-story stuff, there's a lot of those buildings built tight to one another. Those gaps tend to be more 4 to 6 inches.
But in this case, it's even smaller than that.
About 2 inches. Okay, you're talking this much space.
In a press conference, the Toronto Fire Chief said they are working with multiple engineers to figure out how to extinguish the fire. And that's because it's not your typical fire, it's just smoldering.
So it's burning by a process known as smoldering fire as opposed to flaming fire. There's a glow, there's no flame, it's slow spreading, and it's very persistent.
Now, the fire chief says this makes it especially hard to detect where the fire is.
We have never, in the history of the Toronto Fire Service, experienced a fire like this.
This is a very unique circumstance. Like most of the time it would be in a joint that's 8 inches tall, and if it caught on fire, it would burn and go away and nothing would matter. The only challenge here is that they just can't get to it.
Now, the residents in these buildings will remain evacuated until further notice, and the fire chief says it's not clear when the fire will be extinguished.